Hi, I'm Launi with Learn Law for All, and today we're here with Beth Jo Zeitzer. Thank you so much for being here, Beth Jo.
Thank you.
And so today we're going to talk about special real estate commissioners, and she's going to give us some really great tips on it. A little bit about Beth Jo. She is the CEO and designated broker of ROI Properties and owner of ROI Asset Management. ROI Properties is a full-service real estate brokerage firm, and you can check out her information on the link in the description area. We'll have a link to her website and a little bit about Beth Jo. As a disclaimer, as you know, watching this video is for entertainment and informational purposes only, and is not meant to be legal advice or real estate advice. Beth Jo is a licensed attorney, but not practicing in Arizona and California, and she is a broker in Arizona. I am licensed only in Arizona as both an attorney and a real estate agent, but I do not practice real estate at all, and I really don't litigate anymore. So neither one of us are giving you legal advice. But
we're having more fun, right, Launi?
Yeah, we are having way more fun. But again, this is not watching this video or listening to the podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship or a realtor-client relationship. And again, is for entertainment purposes only. So Beth Jo, thank you again so much for being here. I wanted to talk to you. There's a couple of things I told you I wanted to talk to you about today. Now, Beth Jo and I just did a CLE, which is available on Learn Law for All, on special real estate commissioners, kind of what they do, how she can help. It's a very interesting podcast or a CLE, and really informative for anyone who's looking to use that type of service. In specifically, she does Arizona. We are unsure of what other jurisdictional, other jurisdiction laws have. But in Arizona, this is what we use. We have special real estate commissioners. One thing that you talked about in the CLE that I really thought was interesting, super interesting for lawyers and really non-lawyers, you listed about 11 or 12 things that you like to add in a contract when you're being appointed, or the court order, when you're being appointed. Can you kind of go through those 10 things real quick and tell us what they are? Because they were really, really good.
Yeah, and pretty specific. The standard form court order, at least in Maricopa County, is fairly limited. It provides us with authority to sell the property. It provides us with kind of a timeline to kind of achieve various tasks within the assignment along the valuation, management, and sale realm. It also provides us with restrictions and some specific guidance as to, the valuation of the property, what happens in the event that parties refuse to enter into listing agreements, and then what types of kind of general periodic reporting and contract negotiations are required. The types of things, these are, I guess in the couple hundred cases that we have handled as special real estate commissioner, special master, some of the issues that we've run into that are not addressed in the current order include access issues. So when we can access the property and how, not just us, but then also third parties and prospective buyers. So it's our initial access, but then it's also showing times. And we want to be pretty specific on that within the order so that there's no restrictions on access, which again can limit the overall return on investment or our ability to maximize the value on the property. Things like pets on property, specifically on single family residential properties. So although it sounds very granular, I think the ability to provide for where pets are to be stored on property during showing times. Many times we like to see crates or backyards, that are fenced off, specific areas where pets can be, B, while showings are taking place that do not present any kind of a safety or other type of hazard. We also want to provide some guidance as to market, how do we get the property into a market-ready state? So what is the condition of the property? And again, may seem granular. However, things like beds being made, dishes being put away, pet waste being picked up, property being in a clean state, those types of things, all of these things may impact the value of the property and the way that prospective buyers see the property, and whether or not they actually make offers on the property, whether or not it's considered to be kind of distressed or retail, asset.
One of the
We
things
also like, yeah.
sorry, one of the things I talked to you about this in the CLE. One of the things that I found when I look at houses all the time, right? I am on Zillow or realestate.com or whatever all the time, like a couple of times a week, definitely. Just because I love looking at houses, I love looking at what people do to them. And, periodically I come across these ones with pictures where there's underwear out or there's just really messy stuff. And you're like, why didn't you move that? Like, how did the photographer take this picture? Why was that not scooch? I mean, it's 5 minutes to go scooch it to a different area. So I always find that very, very interesting. So when you said that you talked to them about what this house is supposed to look like, I mean, that's a great idea that you put it in the order.
Right. So talking to them, but then also taking it one step further and actually including that within the order. So setting some general parameters, for what the property looks like, keeping in mind that parties are not always incentivized to sell the property. Okay. If a party sells a property, if the parties sell a property, it might mean that one party is displaced. Okay. So they might be disincentivized to want to sell, or otherwise incentivized to make the property actually not look so good, right? So establishing that condition and setting a baseline for that, whether that's in the order or just at the get-go, of the assignment, is very, very important, but preferably to include that in the order. Many times we will, in order to test the value of the property in the market, we will maybe list a property for a price that is maybe not currently supported by market comps, because the parties want us to kind of challenge the market a bit. And that might work, particularly in a supply constrained marketplace like we're experiencing right now in the greater Phoenix area in Arizona. But if we are doing that, if we're challenging the market, we're going to want to provide for a reduction schedule, and preferably if we can include that in the order, that would be great. Other times for that might be as we're negotiating the listing agreement as well, where we're actually agreeing to a reduction schedule so that we're getting to that, fair market value pricing. We're testing it at various intervals, but then actually getting to that price. Other things we like to include specific provisions regarding homeowners insurance on a single family asset or commercial lines insurance on a commercial property, so that the property owner actually has coverage in place. Somebody slips and falls on a property, and that is actually there's recovery, there at a recovery source. Very, very important. And things happen on properties. Unfortunately, sometimes fires happen, right? Or other disasters. So we want to make sure that there's insurance in place that protects the estate, right? The community, by having insurance in place. Any type of documentation regarding the property. So many times, again, if we have parties that may not be on the same page, or one party is maybe in a position of power with respect to kind of knowing what's happening on a property, things like surveys on properties, structural plans, environmental assessment reports, financials, profit and loss statements, and things like that. Sometimes this is related to commercial properties, but many times it might be related to residential properties as well, single family residential properties. Seller property disclosure statements, keeping in mind that an owner of a property has a duty to disclose anything that might impact the value or utility of a property. Okay. Well, all of that is required to be disclosed, and typically it's disclosed through a seller property disclosure statement. So we would want to provide for that in the order if at all possible. And then I like to actually provide for specific, circumstances, like we might have a short sale. Okay, we might have, unfortunately, a foreclosure underway. So I'm going to want to, in those specific circumstances, I'm going to want the court to provide me with authorization to contact the lender so that I can actually help negotiate a short sale. Very important. So I think those are a couple suggestions. Sometimes these might feel like kind of granular, but I have found these specific provisions to be very, very helpful in the court orders that we work with.
Look, I have 3 dogs, and so besides the fact that they're not very nice to strangers, which is, one of the reasons I got them, because I, just to feel safe.
Right.
They poop a lot, and you don't want somebody walking around the backyard,
Right.
or check your front yard in case the neighbors are walking their dogs. You just don't want, that's just not a good first impression, which is how houses are sold, right? I mean, people want to love what they see. And so I love those ideas. I think that they're great because you don't see those. You don't see those in all orders. And I think that it's really important for, not just attorneys to look at that, but even people who aren't represented to know that there are important things that you can ask the court to put in that order. And again, one of the other things we talked about was, how do you balance, this is what we talked about in the CLE. How do you balance, getting that house sold like ASAP, and getting the best return on investment? You had talked a little bit about that. So talk to me about that.
Right. So, I think there are some unique circumstances where the urgency of a sale is going to dictate how we move through it. Okay. So, a party might not be able to feed their family without selling that home. Okay. There might be a foreclosure underway. Okay. And as a result, that, we need to sell the property ASAP. There may be, in addition to a divorce pending, there might be a guardianship pending as well. Okay. And we're seeing this quite a bit with some gray hair divorces these days. So there might be some urgency to be able to get one of the parties into a care facility. Okay. These are just some circumstances, right, where there might be urgency. So there are ways, of course, of maximizing the value of property within those constraints, within even an urgent sale situation, or other people might, describe that as a distressed sale. And so that's moving through it with purpose, pricing the property properly, making sure that the property actually presents really well and is in market ready condition. You don't, even in an urgent sale situation, you don't necessarily need to, give it away. You don't need to give away the property. You need to balance those interests and ensure that you are moving through it in a very strategic manner. If we do not have any of these kind of urgent or exigent situations that give rise to a sale, no matter what, we are going to assume that we are put in place not just to move through a difficult sale or what could be a difficult sale situation. We're looking to, bring neutrality and move through it in a way that, is fair to both parties to get to the finish line and maximize value. In those circumstances where we have some non-exigent circumstances, no matter what, our assumption is going to be we're maximizing the value of the property. And so we're going to take a very careful look and build a strategy that's suitable for that specific asset. Keeping in mind that you don't necessarily, on a commercial property, let's say a multifamily property where I'm, you know, selling to investors, having a sign on that property actually is going to cause more issues than being, you know, than offering, you know, support, okay, for a marketing strategy, because it's a very different buyer base. It's investors are not going to be driving by and just happen to see a sign, you know, on the property. So you have to really carefully craft a marketing strategy that is going to resonate with the specific property, with the buyer base. So taking a look at who that buyer base is for that specific asset, and they're different if they're owner occupants than if they're investors, right? And then, you know, in addition to that, you know, we have very different strategies that we're using on the single family residential side than we are using on the commercial side, and on the commercial side, very different strategies amongst different types of asset classes, whether those are multifamily, office, industrial, retail, or special use properties. Which is also very different than how we move through the sale of a land asset, right? So these are all different types of assets that require very unique strategies. So I think it's important to know and understand some of the special and unique circumstances that might arise that would give rise to an exigent or an urgent sale. But no matter what, there's ways of maximizing the value of the real estate assets, whether that is in an urgent situation or a situation where we might have more time and might be able to move through it on more of a normal sale basis.
And then just one question that I didn't tell you I was going to ask, but I'm going to ask anyway. This does not cost any more than what a regular real estate agent would cost, right? When the court appoints you, you get your percentage of the sale of the house as your payment. Look, I know there's going to be accident circumstances where you may have to charge for, I'm assuming, certain things. But for the most part, when you're appointed as a special real estate commissioner, you just get the amount of your percentage, right?
Right. So it's typically, you know, it is structured as what we'll call a success fee, which is in most circumstances just a commission on the basis of the gross sales price. And, you know, our fees would be very much in line with standard brokerage fees within the community for various assets. Whether that's single family residential or whether we're dealing with a commercial asset, multifamily, you know, office, industrial, retail, or otherwise. And so you're really looking at a commission payment that would be reflective of what you would see in the marketplace, but then you're bundling these additional, you know, services, which in many instances can be fairly labor intensive, as well as kind of take on perhaps a little bit of a legal overlay, right? With court appearances and otherwise.
Right. We also talked about you, the fact that you in some cases will front money as long as there's a contract to reimburse you out of the sale of the home. That's another service that you sometimes provide, where if something needs to be fixed in the house, the family can't do that. You may take on that price to get a better return on investment for them, right?
Yes. And in many instances, we see that parties don't want to front funds to better the property because they get into difficult tracing arguments and otherwise, right? So in many instances, we're in a position where we can budget for things like if utilities are at issue, if there's landscaping that's at issue, if the property needs a trash out, cleanup, you know, whatever the property might need to bring it into a market ready condition. And provided the order, you know, allows us to be reimbursed at close of escrow, and or the parties agree, if that is not addressed in the order, but the parties agree that we will be reimbursed at close of escrow, we will budget for that to be able to facilitate a a more meaningful sale, and a sale that will achieve higher and better pricing for the parties.
Yeah, I love that about that service that you provide. I think it's great. I think, sometimes you can spend $20,000 and get another 80 out of the house because it looks so much better, right? Or even 5,000 to clean up a yard, to show parties what it could, or to show prospective buyers what it could actually look like.
Yeah. It can definitely be a value add.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we appreciate that as attorneys. We appreciate you coming in and taking off a lot of the load from our back when we're trying to get our clients out of their houses. So, well, I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure I'll be having you on here again soon. So I appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Launi.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.